time, light, and money. Bitcoin as the economic second, unit of time, and the base unit of a new economic physics. Introduction. In physics, progress begins with measurement. The second, the meter, the speed of light. These constants, unmoving and universal, allow us to define relationships, chart movement, and build systems of extraordinary complexity. Without them, we'd be lost in a sea of relativity, unable to establish truth or build precision technologies. Economics, by contrast, has no such constants. We try to measure value using currencies that shift with political winds. We rely on market prices set at the margins, labor inputs distorted by automation, and monetary systems that quietly erode the very units we use to measure wealth. This absence of a fixed standard has left economics adrift, vulnerable to manipulation, blind to systemic risk, and unable to coordinate at global scale without hidden costs. But that may finally be changing. Bitcoin, with its finite supply, predictable issuance, and global synchronization, introduces something humanity has never had before: a fixed economic constant. Like the second in physics, Bitcoin offers a unit that doesn't bend, doesn't dilute, and doesn't require trust in any central authority. This exposition proposes that Bitcoin is the economic second, unit of time, the missing constant that allows us to build a new economic physics, one grounded in transparency, measurement, and coordination at a scale never before possible. Section 2, the physics analogy. Before we can fully grasp Bitcoin's role as a foundational constant, we need to understand how the natural sciences construct measurement systems, and why those systems are so powerful. In physics, the second, unit of time, is not just a convenient label. It's a precision anchor, derived from something universal: the oscillation of a cesium atom. Every other unit, like the meter, which is now defined as the distance light travels in a vacuum in exactly 1,299,792,458th of a second, derives from time. Time defines space. Constancy enables coordination. With these constants, we can build GPS satellites, particle accelerators, and interplanetary missions. Without them, none of it works. The entire stack of modern physics depends on having fixed universal reference points. Now imagine trying to build an economic system using a ruler that stretches and shrinks depending on the day. That's fiat currency. The dollar, the euro, the yen, all are moving targets, manipulated by policy decisions, inflationary forces, and political agendas. As a result, we can't measure real productivity, purchasing power, or value without distortion. Bitcoin breaks that pattern. It is divisible, down to 100 million satoshis per Bitcoin. Finite, hard-capped at 21 million. Unforgeable, protected by cryptography and proof of work. Synchronized, block issuance occurs at predictable intervals. Independent, no single issuer or governing body. Bitcoin is the economic equivalent of the second, unit of time, a fixed unit from which we can derive new measures of value, velocity, distance, and productivity in a decentralized world. Like atomic time, it isn't dictated. It just is. And just as light defines a meter through time, Bitcoin defines value through scarcity over time. It gives us a stable denominator, a unit that doesn't change, so the rest of the economic system finally can. Section 3, failed workarounds in economic measurement. In the absence of a true constant, human civilization has developed a series of makeshift frameworks to determine value. Clever, sometimes elegant, but always flawed. Let's walk through the three most prominent. 1. Marginal pricing, valuation at the edge. In most modern markets, price is determined at the edge, based on the last transaction. If someone pays $1 million for a house, the entire neighborhood's homes are suddenly worth more, regardless of whether anything about those homes actually changed. This works fine for real-time pricing, but distorts aggregate value. It's fragile, emotional, and often manipulated by leverage, speculation, or low liquidity anomalies. It also breaks down under duress. During market crashes, illiquidity, or fire sales, everything reprices instantly, with no regard for fundamentals. 2. Labor theory of value, broken by automation. Classical economists like Adam Smith and Karl Marx believed value was rooted in labor, how much human effort, skill, and time went into making something. That made sense in a world of handcraft, industry, and predictable inputs. But in an era of AI, automation, and digital code, this theory crumbles. A single developer might write an app in one night that generates billions in value. Meanwhile, Someone else might work 40 hours a week, producing reports no one reads. Labor input no longer correlates to output. Value is now exponential, not linear. 3. Energy theory of value, EROEI, which stands for energy returned on energy invested. Another modern lens is to measure value based on energy, how much energy it takes to produce or extract something. This theory works well in resource economies, oil, mining, renewables. If it takes more energy to produce a barrel of oil than it yields, the process is unsustainable. But again, this breaks down with digital assets and software. Energy doesn't explain why a JPEG sells for $1 million, or why Bitcoin, a digital ledger, commands trillions in market value. The common failure, no constant. What unites these frameworks is their reliance on relative measures subject to context, sentiment, or external shocks. Without a fixed denominator, value floats. And when your unit of account, fiat, is itself unstable, even the best framework collapses under the weight of volatility. Bitcoin ends that drift. It introduces an economic constant, and that changes everything, not just how we price, but how we understand value itself. Section 4, Preemptive Infrastructure Theory. Some technologies don't start with clear utility. Their significance only becomes obvious in hindsight, after new systems, behaviors, and networks have been built on top of them. These are preemptive infrastructures, foundational platforms that accrue future optionality long before that value is measurable. This theory explains why certain inventions, at first underutilized, eventually become irreplaceable. They arrive early, create structure, and are later recognized as essential. The key insight: present-day use is only a fraction of total future value. Greenwich Mean Time (GMT), a coordinating constant. In the 19th century, Britain, then the world's naval superpower, established Greenwich Mean Time as a global timekeeping standard. Initially, this was practical. Trains, ships, and telegraphs needed synchronization. But GMT became much more: the temporal spine of global coordination. Over time, it underpinned everything from time zones to satellite systems to digital timestamps. GMT wasn't just useful, it became foundational. And at the start, few realized what had been set in motion. Apple's iPhone, from product to platform. When Apple released the iPhone in 2007, it was viewed as a sleek gadget. What followed was the creation of an ecosystem: apps, services, mobile payments, and new industries. Apple wasn't just selling a device, it was laying the infrastructure for modern digital life. The market eventually caught up, turning Apple into the world's most valuable company. Bitcoin, the next preemptive layer. Bitcoin fits the pattern. Today, many still see it as a speculative asset, a form of digital gold, or a hedge against inflation. But under the surface, it's something far more profound. A monetary operating system, trustless, borderless, constant. Like GMT or the iPhone, Bitcoin is early. Its full value is not in its current price or even its current use cases. Its value lies in what it enables: a new frame of reference for economic truth, coordination, and value storage that is immune to manipulation. As with all great infrastructure, once it's in place, everything else can start building on it. Section 5, Economic Physics, Derived Measurements. Once a true constant exists, you can start to define a coherent system around it. In physics, the second, unit of time, lets us define meters, velocity, acceleration, energy, and force. With Bitcoin as the economic second unit of time, we can do the same for the economic world, finally building a framework of economic physics. 1. Economic distance. Definition: the amount of real-world output that one Satoshi can access over time. If 1,000 sats buys you a coffee today and the same amount buys you a full meal next year, economic distance has increased. This can happen due to increased economic efficiency, more productivity per input, or fiat debasement. Goods seem cheaper in sats because fiat is weaker. This measure captures how far a unit of fixed money reaches into the productive world. Number 2, economic velocity. Definition: how often a single Satoshi is spent, reused, or transacted over a fixed interval. Velocity gives us insight into value flow. Are people hodling, spending, reinvesting? Bitcoin's blockchain already provides a rough proxy for this, but with mass adoption and Lightning Network integrations, we'll get more granular data over time. 3. Economic acceleration. Definition: the rate of change in economic velocity or productivity per sat. This reflects how quickly value creation is compounding. If more goods and services can be produced, traded, or accessed per Satoshi in shorter timeframes, economic acceleration is positive, indicating system-wide optimization. Number 4, economic mass. Definition: the total productive leverage or influence an entity has relative to how many sats it moves or controls. A sovereign wealth fund moving billions of dollars worth of BTC has high mass, but so might an open source protocol that uses tiny BTC microtransactions to coordinate massive networks. Mass reflects gravitational influence in the value space. 5. Value momentum and Satoshi efficiency. These are emergent properties. Satoshi efficiency: how much real value is created, transmitted, or stored per Satoshi used. Value momentum: a synthesis of acceleration and velocity, indicating how fast a unit of Bitcoin is generating downstream value in the broader economy. A new measurement stack. Bitcoin gives us the economic second, unit of time. From that, we derive a stack of measurable, interrelated quantities that were previously impossible to anchor. No more floating abstractions. Just like physics matured with constants, economics can now do the same. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 6, Fiat Debasement and the BTC Denominator. When Bitcoin becomes the constant, fiat currencies lose their ability to hide. Without a fixed yardstick, inflation and debasement are hard to measure in real time. Governments obscure the truth through manipulated CPI metrics, selective baskets, or currency pair illusions. But once you price fiat in sats, everything changes. Bitcoin as the universal denominator. If Bitcoin is the economic second, unit of time, then all fiat currencies, dollars, euros, pesos, yuan, can be expressed as exchange rates per Satoshi. How many sats does it take to buy a dollar today? How has that changed over the past year? Which fiat currencies are losing purchasing power the fastest when measured in sats? This gives us a real-time, trustless debasement index. Fiat Health Scoreboard. With Bitcoin as the denominator, you can create a Fiat Health dashboard. Let's take a moment to look at what I call the Fiat Health Scoreboard, a simple but powerful tool that tells us the real story behind global currencies. This scoreboard measures how different fiat currencies are performing, not against each other, but against a fixed, incorruptible benchmark: Bitcoin. We track each currency by how many Satoshis it takes to buy 1 unit of that fiat. Over time, we observe the change. A rising sat per unit means the currency is losing purchasing power when priced in Bitcoin. In other words, it's quietly debasing. So on this scoreboard, you might see something like: the US dollar now costs 3,000 sats, up 15% from last year. The euro, 3,500 sats, up 22%. The Argentine peso, 50,000 sats, up over 300%. This isn't just exchange rate data, it's a debasement diagnostic. A real-time look at which nations are preserving monetary integrity and which are quietly inflating away their people's wealth. And the best part? No central bank can manipulate it. It's priced in Bitcoin, the economic second, unit of time. This scoreboard lets us see, transparently and globally, which currencies are gaining trust and which are bleeding it. It is accountability. On the blockchain, in public, forever. Note, these are illustrative figures. 2 interpretations of value shift. When sats buy more over time, it can mean 1. Productivity gains. The world is becoming more efficient, so your sats go further. 2. Fiat debasement. The local currency is inflating, so Bitcoin's purchasing power appears to rise. Bitcoin helps us distinguish between the two, and over time, it helps us track who is winning and losing the race for monetary integrity. Bitcoin reveals what fiat obscures. Without Bitcoin, inflation is narrative-driven and always reactive, revealed only in hindsight. With Bitcoin as the measuring stick, purchasing power loss becomes visible in real time. This is no longer just about savings, it's about economic truth. Section 7, The Coming Wall, CBDCs versus Bitcoin. As Bitcoin establishes itself as a transparent, fixed economic constant, the legacy monetary system faces a dilemma: adapt or contain. The most likely response from nation-states is not acceptance. It's reinforcement of monetary control through central bank digital currencies. The role of CBDCs: digital fences, not bridges. CBDCs are not about modernization, they're about consolidation. While sold as innovation, their core function is to give governments programmable, real-time control over money. Expect features like geofencing of funds, money that can't leave a region, expiration dates, use it or lose it stimulus, purchase restrictions, certain goods blocked, behavioral penalties or rewards. More importantly, CBDCs can enforce pricing laws, requiring that goods and services be priced only in local currency, effectively locking citizens into a walled monetary garden. Legal tender mandates, the last defense. Governments will likely require all taxes and official contracts to be settled in the CBDC, enforce that domestic transactions be priced and executed only in the national unit, crack down on Bitcoin-denominated commerce through regulation or surveillance. Why? Because pricing in Bitcoin exposes the debasement of fiat in real time. And once the public sees that truth, confidence collapses. The fiat trap, inflation without escape. In a CBDC world, central banks can print money faster, tax invisibly through inflation, track and limit capital movement, freeze or reverse transactions instantly. This gives them the power to contain capital flight, especially during hyperinflationary episodes. Citizens, meanwhile, are trapped in a system where they can't opt out, even as their purchasing power erodes. Bitcoin breaks the spell. But once you see Bitcoin as the economic second unit of time, the reference point that doesn't lie, you can't unsee it. You start pricing your savings, goods, and labor in sats. You begin to understand how much value is silently being stolen. You join a global minority that holds economic clarity outside state control. This is the great fork ahead: monetary transparency versus monetary containment, coordination by consent versus control by design. And that fork will define the next era of human economic history. Section 8, Implications and Forecasts. The emergence of Bitcoin as the economic second unit of time does not merely represent a new monetary asset. It signals a seismic shift in how the world measures, values, and coordinates itself. Once this constant is widely adopted, both individual and institutional behavior will begin to recalibrate around a new gravitational center: individual sovereignty through measurement. For the first time, individuals will be able to price their labor, savings, and assets in a non-debasing unit, track their purchasing power accurately without relying on manipulated CPI figures or government narratives, escape hidden taxation via inflation, opting instead to store wealth in an incorruptible, open ledger. Bitcoin restores temporal alignment. Your work today can still hold value in 30 years, something fiat can no longer promise. 2. Institutional tipping points. Eventually, institutions follow the signal. Corporations begin to hold BTC on balance sheets not as a hedge but as a benchmark. Sovereign wealth funds begin allocating to Bitcoin to protect against fiat devaluation. Nations, particularly those with weak currencies, begin adopting Bitcoin as a secondary or parallel unit of account. Just as Greenwich became the world's standard longitude, Bitcoin becomes the financial Greenwich, anchoring all other currencies and decisions. 3. Bitcoin as a civilizational accelerant. Once a constant is in place, capital allocates more efficiently. Innovation compounds without distortion. Global coordination accelerates with less friction, less rent-seeking, and fewer systemic lies. Bitcoin doesn't just optimize the financial system. It begins to reshape how civilization structures itself. 4. Transition dynamics: friction, resistance, flight. Expect turbulence. Governments will resist pricing goods in Bitcoin. CBDC frameworks will be enforced to preserve monetary control. Tax codes may be rewritten to penalize crypto-denominated transactions. But information leaks, truth spreads, and when a system is built on a fixed reference, every distortion in the old system becomes obvious. Bitcoin won't replace everything overnight, but it will become the silent standard by which everything else is judged. 5. A predictive tool for future infrastructure. Finally, preemptive infrastructure theory gains power as a predictive lens. Look for systems with present utility but exponential future leverage. Look for fixed, foundational standards that others can build on. Look for technologies that improve coordination without control. Bitcoin checks every box and will likely become the benchmark against which all future foundational systems are measured. IX conclusion. In the natural sciences, progress begins with a constant. The second unit of time, allows us to define meters, velocities, forces, and energies. It gives us truth in motion. In economics, we've never had such a constant until now. Bitcoin is the economic second unit of time. It is fixed, transparent, globally synchronized. It gives us, for the first time, a reliable denominator to measure value, purchasing power, productivity, and motion in economic space. Once adopted, it exposes the distortions of fiat currencies, reveals the invisible tax of inflation, and enables individuals and institutions to orient themselves economically without permission. Through the lens of preemptive infrastructure theory, we understand Bitcoin not just as a store of value or currency alternative, but as a civilizational anchor. Its true power lies not in what it replaces today, but in what it enables tomorrow. Like GMT, like the internet, like the iPhone, it is a base layer. Quiet at first, but eventually undeniable. When Bitcoin becomes the unit of economic time, we get measurement. When we get measurement, we get coordination. And when we get coordination, we get exponential value creation. It won't happen overnight. Resistance will be fierce, control will tighten before it breaks. But the constant is here now, ticking in block time, denominated in sats, ready to reshape how humanity understands value itself. A new economic physics is being born, and Bitcoin is its first law.